And now, without further ado, let me invite the person who went there and came back and to tell us about it. And I've heard some of his lecture on the internet, and I can't wait to hear him in person. It's exhilarating. It's going to leave impression on us that I'm sure every person will take something today that probably he's never heard before, and the experience will be amazing. So,
good evening. Don't worry, I'm going to be speaking loud, so you're all going to hear me. My name is Alon Anava, and hold on, אפשר לכבות את זה אולי? זה חזק מאוד בעיניים. רגע, הנה, אני רואה פה, סליחה, חילה. Now I can see you. I saw the light already up there, I don't need this one. My name is Alon Anava, and tonight I'm going to share with you my story, how I became religious 13 years ago, after I experienced what's called a near-death experience. The medical term is called clinical death. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. The story is very, very long, so I kind of zoomed 28 years. Later on, we have permission to stay here till Shacharit. Whoever wants to ask me, they can ask me anything they want. But to kind of give a little bit of an introduction, I grew up in Eretz Israel. And I grew up the most not religious you can imagine. That's how I grew up. No connection to Hashem, no Shabbat, no Kiddush, no nothing. Not only that, I grew up hating Hashem. That's how they raised me. Not to like Hashem, to despise the religious people, to despise the Torah. And I grew up the most secular you can imagine. Some of you maybe got some of the cards. You can see the before picture.
Good looking guy.
That's what my wife says. And when I was 23 years old, I moved from Eretz Israel to America. And when I was 27 years old, the whole thing happened. Now, as I said, the story is very, very long. And I kind of really zoomed through the beginning because it's not so important. And before we even start, there's two major things that I always say in the beginning. First of all, there's going to be a lot of questions. Try to keep the questions till the end. Half the questions that I'm going to have, I'm going to answer as I speak. And the other half, you can ask me later on whatever you want. Some people want to hear and go home. Whoever has questions can stay then and ask whatever you want. So just for the kavod, for the honor of the kahal, try not to, every 2 seconds, to ask a question. The main thing to remember is what I'm going to share with you tonight is the experience what happened. Not the before, not the after. Now, since everything that I remember is so not connected to this world, I use my own words to describe it. And it's kind of like trying to explain a blind person that was born blind, that never saw anything, to try to explain to him how the color blue looks. And you tell him, blue is like the sky. And he's like, I never saw anything. Okay, blue is like the ocean, but I never saw anything. So blue is kind of like green. Yeah, but I never saw green. So everything that I remember and saw and experienced, there's no such a thing here. So I use my own words to describe it. So don't take every little word that comes out of my mouth and tag it. Just kind of flow with it. And the whole thing happened on a very special day. First of all, it was Shabbat. More than that, it was Yudalid Nisan. Yudalid Nisan is the 14th of Nisan. It's the morning of Pesach. The 15th of Nisan is the Leil Seder. Which when I was a kid and they told me about Pesach, they told me, many years ago, the Jews were in Egypt and we were slaves, and then came this guy with a long beard, Moishele, and he did some hocus pocus, and he got everybody out. And they told me that as a story. But the reality is that everything that happens in our history marks for the rest of the generations. So that was the day that the Jewish nation left from slavery to freedom. That's the day that it was marked for future generations, that a Jew has the power to live his physical and spiritual slavery into spiritual freedom. And that's the day that it happened. So it was Saturday, Erev Pesach, and we're a few bunch of friends. We'd made a Pesach party, that's how we called it. And I lived in New York at the time, and we went to a party. It was Friday night. If you saw the picture on the card, you can imagine what type of a party. We weren't really playing bingo there. And towards the end of the party, somebody passed around this smoking device that you use to smoke drugs. And I really didn't know what I'm taking. And I started to feel very, very sick. But not sick that I have to faint, not sick that I need to throw up, or that I'm dizzy. I felt like I'm about to die. And there was a girl with me, and I told her, we gotta leave, I feel like I'm about to explode. We leave the building, we go out, all I wanted to do is go home. I told her, let's just go home, I feel like I'm about to die. And there's really no words to describe that feeling. And a lot of people ask me, what do you mean you felt like you're about to die? So the same way that you wake up in the morning, and you have a stomach ache, you know you have a stomach ache. You don't need somebody to tell you you are experiencing a stomach ache right now. You know it. In Hebrew, it's called yedi'ah. I know. I know who I am. I have a headache. I know I have a headache because I feel the headache, and nobody can tell me different. Nobody can look at me and tell me, you don't have a headache. So I knew I'm about to die. We know the Midrash says that 30 days, actually 40 days, before the soul leaves the body, before a person dies, the Tzelem Eloki leaves the body. And we see with a lot of people that they're old, they start giving their things away, they start saying goodbye. I just knew I'm about to die. We go into a cab, I sit in the back seat, and I'm starting to choke, I can't breathe. I open the window to get some air, and suddenly the whole world froze, like a picture. The world did not have any existence anymore. The world looked like a picture, exactly like you're watching a movie and you press pause and the movie stops. The world froze. And my thoughts are running 5,000 miles an hour, and all that I can think of is I'm about to die, I'm about to meet the creator of the world, and everything that I have in this world is left behind, and the only thing I can take with me, I don't have. A mitzvah. Now if you would tell me 5 minutes before that, do you know that there's a God that created this world? Do you know that there's a creator to this whole system? I will tell you, you must be meshugane. You must be nuts. There's no such a thing. If you would tell me 5 minutes before that, you know you have a soul in your body? You know when you die you go up to Shamayim? Do you know you come down to this world to do mitzvot, good deeds, to learn Torah? If you would tell me that 5 minutes before that, I would tell you you are insane. You must be instituted in a mental place because there's no such a thing. And here I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, trembling from fear, because I know I'm about to meet my Creator. And all that I could think of is how I wasted 28 years of my life on running after money, fun, girls, traveling, everything that doesn't have any metziut. And here I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, and I feel this remorse. How did I waste up my time? What am I living with? And the feeling that I had is very simple to explain. Imagine, chas v'shalom, a person wants to kill himself. He goes and chooses the biggest building, he looks down, takes a deep breath, and jumps. Imagine what's going on in that person's mind the second his feet leave the ground. What did I do? I killed myself. Now I can't jump up, and I have about a minute before I hit the ground. That's how I felt. What did I do? I just wasted 28 years of my life, and that's it. And I'm out. And I have nothing in my hand. It's the first time in my life I felt that I don't have anything. I'm coming with nothing. There's no words to describe the it wasn't even fear. It was like this. In Hebrew we say charata. This regret, this deep regret. How did I miss the opportunity? And this whole thing was about 10-20 minutes. That's how it seemed. Nothing moves. The world is a picture. And suddenly I cover my eyes, and I say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And I say it with Hashem's name, not Hashem. Everybody asks me the same thing. How do you know how to say Shema? I didn't know how to say Shema. But the soul knows everything. And right before the soul leaves the world, it knows everything, it sees everything, it realizes everything, it knows to scream Shema Yisrael. The second that I covered my eyes and said Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which is basically accepting that there's nothing but Hashem, I fall down on the girl that's sitting next to me. And in New York, I don't know how it is in LA, but in New York the cabs have this partition between the back and the front. I see this partition, I'm lying down on the girl, I see this partition, and I feel I'm diving out of my eyes like you dive into a pool, head first. And I wake up in this weird place, I don't hear anything, I don't feel anything. The only thing that I'm noticing, that there was complete silence. No sound, mute, dead, there was nothing. And we don't notice how 24 hours a day there's noise around us. If we're all going to be quiet now for 2 seconds, you hear the cars, you hear the phone ring, you hear the air conditioning, you hear the engine of the fridge, you hear something. And even if you go to the mountains, 2 o'clock in the morning, you close the windows, you hear some type of a buzz in your ear. And the silence was complete. There was nothing. Dead. But the silence was amazing. Was this tranquility, silence. It was just beyond amazing. The next I feel that I'm a cloud. I'm everywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to move myself. And I don't have a body holding me. And this is another thing we don't notice. How we have to carry this sack of bones. And if I want to go there, I have to move this heavy body. And if I want to go there, I have to go over there. And here I am, like a cloud. And I'm weightless. And I'm everywhere. And the third thing that I feel, that the whole concept of time was removed. No time. I don't have to go anywhere. I'm not wearing a watch. No emails, no WhatsApp, no Facebook, nothing. Quiet. And there's no reality of time. We don't notice how our life is defined by time. Like a calendar is boxes, our life is like boxes of time. Morning, night, evening, prayers, Shabbat, Chagim, holiday, this, work, meetings. All our life is like defined by time. So I'm like flying in this place of nothing. I don't hear anything. I don't have to go anywhere. Like a perfect vacation. And as all this is happening, which I don't know if it's a second or a year, I had my thoughts. My thoughts were still with me. The me. And the thing is that we all have our thoughts. Every person in the world has his thoughts constantly running in his mind. The Midrash compares our thoughts to a river. The same way a river constantly flows, our thoughts constantly flow. Like a hard drive in our mind, constantly. Now if you're American, you think in English. If you're Israeli, you think in Hebrew. Whatever language you grew up with, that's what your thoughts are. And all day long you have conversations in your mind. You talk to yourself, you make plans, you tell yourself some jokes, sometimes you say to yourself Lashon Hara, sometimes you do this, but constantly you have your thoughts. So I was having my thoughts, and I was thinking, what's going on? Where am I? How did I get here? What happened? What is this place? So a voice is answering me and telling me, you're dead. This is your death. And I'm like, what? That's how I die? And this voice is telling me, yeah, you died. This is your death. And I'm like, what? So the voice is kind of pointing down. Now there wasn't a hand. Kind of like a dream that you understand what's going on. And it's kind of pointing down. And I kind of like look down like this. And I see my body on the girl in the cab. Like as if I'm like stuck to the ceiling. And I see the whole thing. And this voice is telling me, you died. This is your death. It's actually telling me, Alon died. And I think to myself, like, what? That's how I die? In the back seat of a car in New York? That's the story of Alon? That's how they're going to remember me? That's what my friends are going to say. Oh, remember Alon? Oh, yeah, he dropped dead in the back seat of a car. I was like, what? It was just this weird thought that that's how I die. You know, nobody really thinks of their death. Nobody sits down and plans their death or thinks about the death or anything like that. And if you do, you say, at least let me die when I'm like 90 years old with like 150 grandkids and I don't know, a whole dynasty behind me. And if I have to die young, at least give me a good death. Let me go like on a motorbike, like at 250 miles an hour and I crash into a wall. Give me something exciting. This is how I die, like a sack of potatoes in the backseat of a car. It was this weird, weird thought. Later on, when I became religious and I opened first time the prayer book, and in the morning prayers it says, "V'tatzileni mimita mishuna," which in the beginning I was like, what kind of a prayer is that? When I'm asking Hashem to save me from a bed? Mita in Hebrew is a bed. But that's if you write it with the letter tet. If you write it with the letter taf, it's death. And we're asking Hashem every morning, save me from a weird death. Because it's very honorable for the soul to leave the body in a nice way, and very disgraceful for the soul when it dies in a not nice way. And I felt this, embarrassment. That's how I die? But as this is happening, I don't feel any pain, any sorrow, anything. It's like I'm looking at a movie, and the actor died, and I'm like, okay. And as this is happening, I feel I'm being like pulled up a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. I see a little bit from above, more from above. Then something happened. I feel like I dive into this girl's body, and within a split second, I see her entire life. From the day she was born till that day. And it's not that I'm like sitting like this and like looking at a screen. It's like as if I'm in her body, and I'm thinking her thoughts, and I'm hearing her thoughts, and I'm experiencing what she's experiencing. She's happy, I'm happy. She's upset, I'm upset. She's in pain, I'm in pain. And it's not that I see like, by order, like baby, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see like a mishmash of her life. Like thousands of scenes, and I'm able to understand each scene, but there's no order in the sequence. And as this is happening, I see a little step into the future, and I see her, they're telling my parents that I died, and I see my parents crying, and I see my sisters crying, and I see like a little step into the future. And I always got the same question. How can it be that you see, I can somehow understand that you see what's going on? I can maybe relate to seeing a little bit of the past. How can you see the future and everything mixed at the same time? That doesn't make sense. So the short version of the answer is that when our soul is in our body, the soul is limited to the body. The body can only see from here to there. The body can only hear from here to there. The body can only carry a certain amount of weight. But the second that the soul leaves the body, it's not limited to the body. The soul can see from here to the other side of the world. The soul can hear 50,000 conversations at the same time with no problem. The soul can see the past, the soul can see the present, the soul can see the future, the soul can see everything. The soul has no limitations. So I was able to see the past of the girl, the present of the girl, and the future at the same time. All one big mishmash. And as this is happening, the cab is like driving in Manhattan. I'm like a magnet over the car. And I'm being pulled up a little bit higher, and a little bit higher, and a little bit higher. And I'm like flying over the city. And at some point, the car went under this overpass. And that was like the height of maybe like 2, 3 floors. And I go into the overpass. And I suddenly see, I like calling it, the graphic design of the world. And I'll tell you what I mean. Imagine now you look at a website, and you see a beautiful website with pictures and colors and buttons and videos and pictures, and you press a button, it opens another page, you press another button, starts playing a video. What would happen if you would remove the screen? If you would pick up this design, what would you see? You would see the code that creates the world. The code that creates the website. Sorry. The professional term there this code is called HTML. Now, if this website has a software, then it has a more sophisticated layer of code. So the exact same way, we know that Hashem creates the world with speaking. Of course, Hashem doesn't have a mouth. It's just a parable for us to relate. What we see in many different places, especially when it says that Ba'asara ma'amarot nivra ha'olam, with 10 speeches, the world was created. And it says in Sefer Bereshit, Vayehi Rakiya, Hashem spoke. There should be a sky, and he created the sky. And we see in many different places, Ruach Piv, Dvar Hashem HaMechayet HaOlam. Hashem creates the world with speaking. And he uses 22 sophisticated tools that are the letters of Lashon Kodesh, of the Hebrew language. And exactly how we know from Kabbalah that each letter has a numerical value. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3. Aleph can also be Aleph, Lamed, Pei. All the combinations, all the codes. I suddenly see how everything is these letters. I see millions and millions and millions of letters, the Hebrew letters, and I'm able to read the letters, I'm able to read the code and understand what I'm seeing. And not because I'm Israeli and I know the Hebrew, because the soul only knows Hebrew. There's only Lashon Kodesh, there's only Hebrew in Shamayim, there's no other languages there. And I'm able to see this code and understand what I'm seeing. This godly power that creates the world. And if for 1 second Hashem closes his mouth, the world does not exist. As it says, B'chol yom mechadesh maaseh bereshit. Every second Hashem recreates the world. And everything has this godly power. Even stones. Everything has this godly power that constantly enlivens the world. And everything is enlivened with these letters. And everywhere I look, I see these billions and billions of letters. And it seemed like I'm there maybe 50,000 years. And how long does it take a car to go under an overpass? Maybe 2 seconds. Later on, if you want, we can go more into this part, because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about that, but I want to move on. The car is continuing to drive in Manhattan. I'm like a magnet over the car. At some point, I'm like the height of like maybe 20 floors. And I see the entire city from above. I'm like flying over the city. Suddenly, the car passes next to this huge building. And the same way that I dived into this girl's body and I saw her entire life, I go through this building and instantly I scan the entire building, and everything that's in the building I see instantly. I see hundreds of apartments, and each apartment I see what's going on, and I'm able to relate with each person like I'm relating with this girl. And one apartment I see a boy crying, one apartment I see a couple fighting, one apartment I see a woman reading. I see like hundreds of scenes, and I'm able to like relate with each one, like as if I'm standing here and I know all of you what you're thinking, and what you ate for breakfast, and how was your day, and what's your favorite color. And I'm able to process all this information. And here I always stop to say a funny story, that when I went on my first date with my wife, I told her this story. So the rabbi did the shidduch, the match, and we go on the date, and she tells me, I hear you have a very special story how you became religious. Now I was already like 78% religious. She was like 23.5% religious. So we sit in the date, and she grew up here in America, very secular. And when she came to college, she met a rabbi, and he started, introducing her to Judaism. And 10 years later, we're sitting in the date. So tonight you getting the short version. She got like the full version. It was like a 9-hour date. But anyway, she told me the next day that after hearing the story, she threw all her pants away. And she said, you know what really made it? Is this part with the building. And you know what? For 10 years I was like bouncing backwards and forth with this whole religious thing. And you know what? I didn't have a problem with believing. I believed there's a God. I believed the whole thing. That wasn't the issue. But I had one question that nobody was able to answer me, and that stopped me from becoming religious. And you answered it. And the question was very simple. How can it be that there's 7 billion people in the world, and you want to tell me that God knows me? So many people? Can't be. And you know what? Let's ignore all the people in the world. Let's concentrate on the Jews. Let's concentrate on the religious Jews. You want to tell me that on Yom Kippur, 3 million people are in a synagogue praying at the same time around the world, and God hears everybody? Lo yachol liot. It cannot be. And if this is the case, so why should I bother? Why should I be dressed modest? What, is he looking at me? Why should I do his commandments? What, he even cares? Why should I pray? Does he even listen? So what's the point? And she told me, when you told me that you, what are you? Like a little leaf, like a soul flying in the air, you were able to see in each room of this building what was going on and understand it, made me realize how so much more so the creator of the world is able to know every little creature in this world what's going on. And the reality is that nothing even moves in this world without Hashem knowing. An ant, the smallest creature, The Arizal HaKadosh says even a leaf doesn't even turn over without Hashem saying to an angel, make him turn over. Nothing moves in this world without Hashem's supervision. So much more so a human being, and so much more so a Jew. And she told me, when you told me that's it, it changed it. And a few weeks later, she changed her entire life. And a few weeks later, she decided to marry me. Up until today, she's like, no, she's very happy. Especially at nights like this that I go and come back at 2 in the morning. But the truth is that the reality is that every one of us is a diamond in the eyes of Hashem. Every prayer that comes out of our mouth is music to Hashem's eyes. Every kvetch, every pain, every suffer that we go through, Hashem is with us. Every little thing that we do, it's like as if we're like the only person in the universe, me and Hashem. Anyways, from this point, up until this point, everything was good, calm, nice, no problems, no pain. Suddenly, with no preparation, no warning, no nothing, I feel like something grabs me from behind, and within a split second, I wake up in this pitch black place. I don't see anything, I don't feel anything, I don't hear anything. All I feel is that something is holding me so strong that it's like crushing me. It felt like 100,000 pounds is on me, squashing me. There's no words to describe the fear, because there's no such fear even in this world to say, oh, it was scary like that. This was the most scariest thing I ever experienced. And why? Because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where I am. I didn't know anything. All I know is I wake up in this black place and something is squashing me so strong that the pain was like not normal. And it felt like it's trying to pull me up through like this funnel, and the walls of the funnel are full of blades, and it's like ripping pieces of me. Like as if it's ripping pieces from my soul, and I'm screaming from pain, and I hear my own screaming. And there's really no words to describe this nightmare. Mainly because I didn't know what's going on. But at some point I kind of realized what's going on. I knew who I am, I knew where I came from, I knew where I'm going, I knew everything. Mainly because there's one reality up there. In this world, there's two realities. Truth and a lie. And a person can make a lie in this world and hide behind this lie, and nobody will ever know. But it only works in this world. In the world above, there's only one side to the coin. Emet. Truth. You cannot bend the truth. You cannot hide behind a good lawyer. The truth is as is. So I knew exactly where I am. I knew exactly what's holding me. I knew everything. And the suffering that I experienced was very simple. Imagine now you take a fish out of the water. What's going to happen to the fish? It starts choking. It needs water. It cannot exist without the water. A couple seconds and the fish has died. Exactly with the soul of a Jew. If a soul of a Jew is not connected to God, it doesn't have any life force, doesn't have any life. And unfortunately, in this world, a Jew can do certain sins that will cut his life force from Hashem. Some sins are so severe that the reaction from the sin is literally the soul gets cut off. And that's how I felt. I felt I have no connection to Hashem, not even one little connection. To make it a little bit more clear, we know that we have 613 mitzvot. The 613 mitzvot correspond to 613 optic fibers that build in one thick cable that connects us to God. If I do all 613 mitzvot, more 620, but I have a good connection, then I have no problem. But if I start not doing some of the mitzvot, then I'm starting to cut this connection. And if I'm not doing any of the mitzvot, there's no connection. So the same way you have in your sink, too much dirt goes in, the water will not come down. You have to call the plumber, get the how do you call it? The steamer out. How do you call it?
Stuck.
Yeah, get stuck. So the same thing in the spiritual level. If there's no connection to God, the soul in the body can exist. But out of the body, it's like a fish without water. And the thing is that there's really no words to describe it. There are words, but it would take me days to describe it. And once I used to describe it, but there's not really much of a point. Later on, if you want, I'll give you more information. One thing to kind of make it more realistic, if you look at the cards that I gave you, turn it around, you'll see that there's like a look of a tunnel. And the tunnel is built from angels. And that's how it looked, like I'm being pulled through this tunnel. And every bad deed, or what's called a sin that I ever did, created this angel that formed this tunnel that I had to go through. At some point, it felt like I'm there, I'm not exaggerating, maybe 1,000,000 years of this severe torture. Mainly because I don't have any connection to Hashem. I'm stuck in this darkness, and I'm screaming to Hashem, help me, get me out of here. I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you want. I'll be the best Jew in history. This time forgive me. I'll do whatever you want. And it was like as if I was screaming to Hashem for 1,000,000 years. Nothing. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. After 2 billion years of screaming, I suddenly see this dot of light, this microscopic dot of light. And it sounds like a cliche, but it was the light at the end of the tunnel. And I knew that if I can somehow get to this light, that I'll be saved. And I'm screaming to Hashem, forgive me, I'll do whatever you want. I'll be the best Jew in history. I'll do whatever. Just give me another chance. Get me out of here. And this light starts coming closer to me and closer to me and closer to me and closer to me, becoming bigger and bigger. At some point, there was nothing but this light. Everywhere that I looked was this bright, shiny light. And amazingly, as I see everything this light, I see it as a triangle. And I know that behind this light, behind this screen of light, is God. I know that behind this light is the creator of the world. And there's really no words to describe this feeling. It wasn't fear or anything. It was this awe, like this unbelievable feeling that the creator of the world is standing behind this light. And I knew that if I can somehow touch this light, then I'm going to be saved. And it felt like as if a hand reached out from this light, grabbed me and pulled me into this light. And I only found one way to describe kind of how it felt. Besides that it felt like not normal pleasure, I felt like I'm being electrified from pleasure. But I found one way to kind of describe how it felt. Imagine now you take a laptop, a phone, an iPad, whatever, a piece of metal that is worthless. You connect it to the internet, and within a split second, any question you have, all you need to do is Google it. An endless amount of information is in the tip of your hands. That's how it felt. Then I got connected to the main source of information, and instantly I was a genius. I felt like all the wisdom of the universe was downloaded into me. And instantly I was like the biggest genius in history. And it's not that I saw information from this world. This world looked like a prehistoric thing, like little kids playing with Lego blocks. That's how this world looked. It's like as if I knew all the wisdom of the universe. It felt like I'm standing under a waterfall of information that's washing me and not stopping. But I can't grab this information. It's just washing me. And I see everything, and I'm instantly this beyond genius. And this information was translated to pleasure. I felt like I'm being electrified with pleasure. And this information came kind of in two channels. The first channel was that instantly I was a genius. I knew everything. But the next channel, it's like as if I saw the entire world from the day it was created till the last day, one big panoramic picture, and everything made sense. Everything from the day it was created till the end was like this big puzzle. All the pieces were together, and it was this genius master plan that our mind, it was mind-blowing. Which made me realize something so simple. We see this world like one piece of a million-piece puzzle, and we're trying to figure out what's going on here. Even if you take a 200-piece puzzle, and you break it up, and you pick up one piece, you're never going to figure out what's the picture. Because you only have one piece. And that's how we see the world. And we see in this world terror attacks, and holocausts, and murders, and diseases, and death, and suffering. And we're like, where's the God you're talking about in this system? But we only see one detail. and we're not connecting all the parts together, so nothing makes sense. But I was able to see like this panoramic picture, this genius plan, like wow, I can't believe it was so simple. There's no words to describe that, because I literally saw from the beginning to end one condensed picture. And as all this is happening, I'm experiencing this pleasure that our mind cannot even understand, but I feel I'm like stuck in a bubble, and I'm like, I'm not part of it. Like I see it all, I understand it all, but I'm like stuck. And as I'm feeling this amazing pleasure, I feel the complete opposite. This suffering that I'm like, I have no connection to it. And they're kind of like telling me, we're sorry, but you have nothing to do here. You chose to be on the beach. You got to go there. I'm like, no, you got to leave me here. No, you got to go there. It was like this tease. They're showing me the wonders of the universe, the wisdom of the universe, and then they're telling me you got to go. Kind of like taking a little kid and telling him, come, I'll take you to ice cream, and the whole ride, you pumping him up. I'll buy you ice cream, and cakes, and lollipops, and candies, and you get the kid all excited. Then you walk him into the store, and you tell him, look at all the treats, here's the lollipops, here's the ice cream, here's the cakes, let's go home. Well, why did you bring me here? There's no words to describe this conflict of seeing this information and experiencing this amazing pleasure, but being dragged out. I felt like I'm being torn out of this place. Screaming, begging, leave me! What are you out of your mind? Why are you taking me out of here? They rip me out of this place, throw me into this room. I wake up in this huge pitch black room. I don't see anything. All I feel is that I'm standing completely naked. And all that I look, everywhere that I look around, I see millions and millions of eyes looking at me. And I'm standing like this, naked. I don't know what to do with myself. Now there wasn't a body, so I wasn't naked from clothes. But we know, the Torah teaches us that when a person does a good deed, a mitzvah, he creates this spiritual garment that covers the soul. Does another mitzvah, another spiritual garment that covers the soul. Another mitzvah, another garment. If chas v'shalom that person did the opposite of a good deed, a sin, he creates a blemish, a stain on this garment. If it's a small sin, small stain. Big sin, big stain. Many big sins, many big stains. If the person is smart and lucky, comes Yom Kippur, he does tshuva, he washes off these stains. Like you take your jacket to the dry cleaning. But if the person is not lucky, the garments are full of stains. My problem was that I didn't even have a garment. I was naked. And these billions of eyes, all these eyes, were all the souls of all the Jews from all generations, standing and looking at me, including you. And I felt that I was the wicked person in all generations, and all the souls that are looking at me are righteous souls. And it felt like they're looking at me and saying like, oh, it was you. There's no words to describe the shame. I was standing there like naked, and the shame was because all of them looked at me and like saw me like I was transparent. Everything that I ever did, I was like clear. And more than that, worse than that, was the feeling I had in front of Hashem. It felt like the entire room was full with Hashem's presence. Umlo chol haaretz kevodo. And it felt literally like I'm standing like this. You know, when somebody's embarrassed, he can't look you in your eyes. He puts his eyes down. It felt like I'm with my eyes down, and if I lift up my head, I see Hashem. It was just obvious that Hashem nitzav alav. I couldn't lift up my eyes. It felt like I totally broke Hashem's heart. It didn't feel like Hashem is standing like this with a baseball bat waiting to smash me to pieces, like some people say. It felt like I broke Hashem's heart. It literally felt like Hashem told me, what did you do? I sent you down to the world with a list this long of things to do, and a list this long of things not to do. Everything I told you to do, you didn't do. Everything I told you not to do, you did. You like messed it all up. It literally felt like I broke Hashem's heart. And the thing is that I knew that if they take me to the next room, then I'm done. And I'm like begging, no, leave me here. I'll take all this shame, just leave me here. Just don't take me into the other room. And it felt like that I've been dragged into this huge other room. They throw me in this other room. I know, I understand, this is the room, this is the court, and I'm going to be judged for every little thing that I ever did in this world. And I'm begging, no, don't take me in there, just leave me there, leave me there. And I don't see anything, I don't have the reshut, the permission to see anything. For some odd reason, I had the nerve or the courage to look, and I look to my left, and I see like battalions of prosecutors. And we know the Mishnah teaches us that when a person does a good deed, a mitzvah, he creates himself a defense attorney. And when a person does the opposite of a good deed, he creates himself a prosecutor. And all I see is battalions of prosecutors. And I had the chutzpah, I don't know from where, I look to my left, and I see two defense attorneys. One was crippled, the other one was blind. The third one didn't want to show up that day. Sounds very funny now, it wasn't funny up there.
Excuse me, can you repeat again? What did you see?
Two defense attorneys, shte senegorim. One was crippled, the other one was blind. They're telling me, you want to say something? What's to say? What can I say? Mashu lo barur? Do you want me to explain?
No, that's okay.
Okay. And at this point, they're starting to play the movie of my life. From the day that I was born till this day, I see the movie of my life. Just this time, I'm the star. And I'm like as if in my body again, but this time the whole life is slow motion. And I see every little step of my life. And they're telling me, here you stole, here you lied, here you cheated, here you did this, here you did this, here you did this. And every person that I ever did something is standing right there. I stole from somebody, he's standing there. Why did you steal from me? I cheated somebody, why did you cheat me? Why did you do that to me? I stole from my mom money to buy cigarettes, she's standing there. Why did you steal from me? Now maybe in this world you don't get so excited but from stealing or cheating or up there's no words to describe this overwhelming shame. And every little thing is pointed out. Now they didn't point out things that I didn't know. They didn't point out every time I desecrated Shabbat by doing something I didn't know. You don't know? You're good to go. But I knew a lot to get me in trouble. More than that, mainly what was shown to me was between me and my fellow person. Ben Adam lechavero. You don't need the Torah to tell you not to cheat. And you don't need the Torah to tell you not to steal. And you don't need the Torah to tell you to be a mensch. That's what was shown. Here you cheated, here you insulted, here you did this. And every little sin that is pointed, they're showing me right away the spiritual damage that was caused. And I'll tell you what I mean. Most people say, it's okay, I don't, mind my own business. I'll deal with it when I get there. Everybody's very brave and they say, I'll deal with it when I get there. They don't realize that when you do something wrong, you affect the entire world, the entire universe. And that's what they showed me. They showed me the spiritual blemish that was caused by my wrongdoing. And I'll give you an example. First of all, I'll explain it in 2 words. When somebody does a sin, there's a chain reaction what happens. The first thing that happens is that person didn't listen to the commandment of the creator of the world. Which is, when you think of it, it's chutzpah. How dare you? The master of the universe told you to do something, and you're not listening to him. That in itself is, it's chutzpah. In Hebrew it says, Avar al Ratzon Hashem. He did the opposite of Hashem's will. The second thing that happens, we said, a blemish on the garment. The third thing that happens, when a person does a sin, he creates an angel, a bad angel. The Gemara calls it Malach Habala, a destructive angel that comes to annoy that person till he kills him. And later on comes and prosecutes against him up there in Shamayim. Worse than all that, when a person does a sin, he creates what's called a klipa, a spiritual infection, a spiritual shell that goes around the soul and covers the light of the soul. So you look at a person that lives his life way far away from religion, you tell him something about spirituality, come and light candles, nonsense. Come and put tefillin on, it's nonsense. This coldness to spirituality, because the soul is so covered with these shells, exactly like an orange. The peel is disgusting, it's bitter, who eats it? But it covers the good part of the vegetable, of the fruit. So when a person does a sin, he creates this klipa, this shell that covers this neshama. Worse than all this, because all this can actually be reversed. Worse than all this, when a person does a sin, he creates this spiritual blemish in all the spiritual worlds and in this world, that the entire universe suffers from that. And I'll give you an example to make it more clear. Imagine now, you go to somewhere in Europe, there's a museum there with a picture this big that is worth probably like $500 billion, that some guy 300 years ago took a bunch of paint, threw it at the canvas, went like this, and now everybody goes to this museum to marvel this beautiful picture. Imagine somebody walks into the museum with a bucket of paint and throws it at the picture and destroys the picture. Now what's going to happen? He's going to get arrested, then he goes to jail, then he has to pay a fine. He has to deal with his own wrongdoing. But what did he really do? He destroyed the picture. Nobody ever again can enjoy this picture. You cannot retouch it, you cannot redo it, you cannot reproduce it. So he ruined it for everybody in the world. Nobody will ever see this picture. And that's this spiritual blemish that is caused by something wrong that I do. And that's what was shown. He stole, look what you did. Look at this deficit you created in the universe. And on the other hand, it works the same way. If I do a good deed, the entire universe benefits from it. At some point, showing me 28 years of my life, I was like, okay, I got the point, stop the movie, let's go for commercials, something, stop it. And they're showing and showing. At some point, they're telling me, look, Habibi, you're really like a lost case. Like what do you have here? You know? And they were trying to really be nice, and they're like, okay, let's try to put things together, let's see what we have. So when you were 8 days old, your parents circumcised you. They really didn't ask my permission, but they did. And since it's not even your mitzvah, it's your father's mitzvah, but you were circumcised, so we'll give you a mitzvah. And when you were 13 years old, your grandfather took you to Yerushalayim to put tefillin on, so we'll give you tefillin one time. And one time $1 fell out of your pocket, and somebody hungry picked it up and ate, so we'll give you charity for this one. And one time you helped that person, and one time you helped that person. And one time you smiled to that person, one time you did this. They put it all together, and they're like, well, look what you have here. You have like 99.9 bad, and nothing good. Just that it seemed like I'm about to be now on a skewer, thrown to something like that. They're telling me, look, we're going to give you an option. We're going to give you two options. The first option, you go back to that black thing that brought you here, this Malach HaMavet, this angel of death, and he will finish it, which that wasn't really an option. The second option is, you go back down to this world. And if you choose to go back down to this world, you have three conditions. The first condition is that you have to live your life like a Jew. They didn't tell me Ashkenazi Jew, Sephardi, Hasidi, a Jew. Only we make the separations. In Shamayim is Jew. And at this point, they're showing me my entire life forward. I see myself with this long beard. I see myself with a black suit. I see my wife. I see my wedding. I see my kids. I see my entire life. And they're telling me, that's how you have to live your life. And you cannot come back here after 120 years and tell us, I didn't know. They didn't tell me. My parents didn't send me to yeshiva. Oh, that's not really a mitzvah. Those religious people made it up. That's not really real. Oh, I didn't have cheshik to do that. This is how you have to live your life. You cannot bend the rules. You cannot make new rules. You cannot invent rules. This is the line. This is the blueprint. The second condition is that you have 28 years of debt. So from baby to 13, we'll forgive you. Okay? So from 13 to 28, you have 15 years of debt. Becoming religious is not putting a yarmulke on your head and growing a 2-foot long beard. That's easy. Becoming religious is you stole, you have to give this, whatever you stole, back to the person. And if you don't have the thing that you stole, you have to give that person the amount of money. And if you can't find the person, you have to donate this money to somebody. You cheated in business? You owe that person money. You have to go and turn rocks around. You have to apologize to every person you hurted. And the third condition is that you have to say everything that you saw here to every person you meet. You cannot move to a deserted island and live by yourself. You have to tell it to everyone. Now, I wasn't really in a position of telling them, you know what, why don't you give me like a day or two to consult with my attorneys? Maybe I can get a better deal. I was like, where do I sign? Where do I sign? When are we starting? When's the next elevator? And they're like, no, don't get too excited. Because you cannot come back here again and say, I didn't feel like it. I didn't want to. That was too hard. It was too hot to walk with a jacket in the summer. It was too annoying to do this. They're telling me you have to be sure before you're signing what you're accepting on yourself. Of course, I signed the deal with no questions. It literally felt I'm shaking my hands with Hashem. That's how it felt, that I'm shaking my hands on this deal. And the second I shake my hands with Hashem, it felt like Hashem pushed me. I felt like this impact, like a train hit me. And Hashem told me, "Ata chayav lachzor b'tshuva." You have to do tshuva. And it felt like Hashem pushed me into my body. And the second that I feel this impact, my eyes open up in this world. And I'm like completely out of it. I don't know what's going on. I'm totally out of it. Took a couple minutes or hours, I don't know what, to wake up. And I didn't remember one thing from what I told you, not even one detail. All I knew is that I had to do a mitzvah. Like a little kid that goes on a vacation and his mom tells him, when you get there, give me a call. I only knew I have to do a mitzvah. Now I don't know what. At that time, I had a friend that started to become religious. And every time he met me, he was like, come put tefillin on. And I'm like, no. Suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm going to call him. Now imagine how I look in this picture. Look at the postcard how I looked. Long hair, tattoos all over my body, piercings everywhere you can put one is there. I called my friend at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was Saturday. He wasn't so religious. He answered. And I tell him, Itzik, you got to come right now. I got to put tefillin on. He's like, what? I told him, don't ask any questions. You have to come right now. I have to put tefillin on. So he tells me, it's Shabbat. You can't. So I told him, who cares what day is it today? I have to put tefillin on. And he's like, what happened? Are you okay? Tells me, Nibu, ishtagata? Now you have to understand that I'm like a lunatic and I'm calling him to put tefillin on. And he tells me, Nibu, ishtagata? You lost it? I told him, Itzik, don't ask any questions. You have to come right now with your tefillin. I have to put tefillin on. So he tells me, you can't, it's Shabbat. So we're arguing, and I'm like, what are you becoming technical now? Shabbat, not Shabbat. What does it matter? So he tells me, you can't. I told him, so take me to a synagogue. I have to do something. And he's like, what happened? I told him, Itzik. So he tells me, why don't you come tonight? It's Pesach. It's Leil Seder. I told him, oh, that sounds very religious. I'm going to come. So I lived at the time in New York. They invited me somewhere in Borough Park. My first Seder in my life after 28 years. I never had Seder. I never had Pesach. For me, Pesach was 3 weeks off school. All the holidays were how much time I'm getting off school. Sukkot is 10 days off school. Chanukah, only 8 days off school. So Pesach was the best holiday because it was 3 weeks off school. And here I'm sitting in the first time in my life in a real Seder. Tov. For the first 2 weeks after this day, I don't remember one detail from what happened. I knew something weird happened. I'm zooming a lot of details. I woke up here, I was in the hospital. I'm just going through a lot of details because I want to get it done. For 2 weeks, I don't remember nothing. I don't know what happened. I don't know anything. I don't remember one detail. All I know that I'm a completely different person. Up until this point, I was this rude, rough, mean, disgusting Israeli. That every word that came out of my mouth was a curse. Somebody would look at me the wrong way, I would beat him up. I was like this rough guy. Suddenly I'm like this nice guy. Hi, how are you? I go to work, I see my friends, how are you doing today? And I don't remember nothing. 2 weeks from this day, one day I'm half asleep, half awake. You know this point that you're like almost falling asleep? Suddenly everything that I told you, plus the 99% that I didn't tell you, all wakes up. I wake up in the middle of the night and I see like thousands of scenes. And I'm like starting to like freak out. So the first thing that I do is I wake up the girl that was sleeping next to me, the girl that was with me in the cab. And I tell her, remember in the beginning I told you I dived into her body and I saw her entire life? I tell her, tell me, when you were 7, this and this ever happened to you? She was like, how do you know? I tell her, when you were 8, this and this happened to you? How do you know? When you were 9, did you live over there and this happened to you? She's like, how do you know? Now I didn't want to tell her how do I know, because I was like, if I'm going to tell her how do I know, she's going to think I'm nuts. Now I had an issue in my mind, because I was like, this weird, like in my real mind, this is not real. But in the real reality, I was like, wait a minute, I'm like under a deal here, I got to get going. And I'm not sure if it's real or not, so I asked her another detail, and another detail, and another detail. And everything that I ask her, she confirms. And she was like, how do you know? Now I said, if I'm going to tell her how do I know, if I'm going to tell anyone how do I know, they'll be like, okay, here, come sit down, relax. Here, put your hands in this white jacket. Take this pill. The doctor's coming in a few minutes. Everything will be okay. Now, I didn't know what the religious people think. I was afraid to go to a rabbi because in my mind, the religious people were like nutcases. What do you expect from me? All I see is a bunch of people dressed the same, swinging chickens over their heads, doing all sorts of weird things. I had like the worst opinion about religious people. I was like, they're the nutcases. I'm going to go to them. So I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take it as it comes. So I call my friend Itzik. I tell him, how do you become religious? So he tells me, okay, you have to put tefillin in the morning. You have to put tzitzit. You have to eat kosher. You can't eat meat and dairy. You can't eat certain animals that you like. You can't do this. You can't do that. You have to do this. You have to do that. And I'm like, okay, I got the point. This is enough. So I buy the tefillin. I buy the tzitzit. I buy a siddur. He teaches me the basics. I pack my bags and I move to Chicago. Far away from all my friends, from all my surroundings. And I'm like, how am I going to become religious now? I'm 28 years old. What, am I going to suddenly change my life? It doesn't work like that. So I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll do the easy things. So I don't mind putting tefillin in the morning. It's not hard. And I don't mind the meat and dairy. Okay, no more cheeseburgers. Fine. But anything that was big, I was like, wow, you can't do that to me. You can't, Shabbat, I'm not going to go out. What, I'm not going to go to the beach anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. I was like, I can't do that. I cannot do that. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the easy things. So I would look for little things that are easy, and that I would do. And one time, I opened the prayer book, and it says in microscopic letters that when you leave the bathroom, you have to wash your hands like 3 times with this funky-looking cup, and then you have to say a blessing. So I was like, oh, that's easy. I'll do it. So I went and bought this cup, and every time I would leave out of the bathroom, I would wash my hands 3 times, and I would say the bracha. I thought I'm a tzaddik. I thought I'm like a rebbe. I was like, nah, nobody in the world is as religious as me. Nobody washes their hands like that. And that's how I felt. And one time my friend Nitzi comes to visit me, and he tells me, ooh, I see you doing Netilat Yadayim. Told him, you know what I do? Do you know what I do? Every time I leave the bathroom, I wash my hands 3 times, and I say a bracha. He's like, that's nothing. You know what the real religious people do? They put a bucket next to the bed, and before they wake up, they have this cup of water next to their bed, and before they even put their feet on the ground, they wash their hands. I'm like, what? What kind of a lunatic will do that? So whatever didn't fit well in my mind, I was like, these religious people, they're like making up all these weird things. But whatever's easy, I was like, I'll do. And it was very, very hard at the age of 28 to suddenly switch my life. And the hardest was Shabbat. I knew I have to keep Shabbat. So I was like, how am I going to keep Shabbat? So I was like, okay, from next week, I'm starting to keep Shabbat. Next week would come, I would be like, not this week. The next week, 100% I'm starting. The next week will come, no, I meant the following. Next week, batuach, I'm starting to keep Shabbat. And every time I would push it. And I didn't know how to start keeping Shabbat. And then I remembered, at the time I was a very heavy smoker. And I remembered when I was a soldier in the army, I met this religious guy, and he tried to, get me closer to Hashem, and he was telling me all sorts of things. And for an hour and a half, I was like a brick wall. He couldn't get through. Came the end of this hour and a half, he tells me, look, I see you really don't want to listen to me, but let me just leave you with one thing. On Shabbat, you're not allowed to light fire. And on Shabbat, you're not allowed to extinguish fire. So if you must smoke on Shabbat, at least don't turn out the cigarette. So if you smoke 50 cigarettes a day, so you have 50 less sins. I was like, what? Tell me not to steal, tell me not to kill. You're telling me not to turn out cigarettes? I thought the guy's like a total meshugane. 10 years later, when I had to keep Shabbat, I was like, wait a minute. I just found a loophole. I'm going to smoke my cigarette. I'm going to finish the cigarette. I'm going to put it in the ashtray. I keep Shabbat. So I would smoke, finish my cigarette, put it in the ashtray, and it's Shomer Shabbat. I keep Shabbos. Yeah, but I just saw you drive. No, driving is okay. I don't turn out my cigarettes. And for 3 months, I would not turn out my cigarettes. And that was my Shabbat. And if I would forget Chas v'Shalom, now they're sharpening the skewer up in Gehenna for me. And that was my Shabbat. And the thing is that every week or two, I would add another little thing and another little thing. And the thing is that when I did do a mitzvah, it was 100%. So sometime, a friend came to visit me and he told me, Shabbat, you have to do Kiddush. I told him, wine? I'll do that. So every Shabbat would come. I was mehader. I would drive 60 miles to the north part of Chicago to buy kosher wine. And Shabbat would come. I had a beautiful suit. And I would set up the table real nice, and I made a real nice meal, and I bought a fancy cup, and I got all excited. I make a whole thing out of it. And then I would come, I would do my kiddush, get all excited, eat my meal, and after that go out to a movie. So one time, my friend comes to visit me, and I tell him it's Shabbat. We got to do kiddush. So he's like, okay. So we do the whole thing, the kosher wine, the fancy cup, the suit, everything. And then I do my kiddush, we eat the meal, and we go out to a club. Okay, we come back home from the club 4 or 5 in the morning, and my friend tells me, you're kind of making a joke out of the whole thing. I told him, why? He's like, well, either you're religious, and you do Kiddush, and you keep Shabbat, or you're not. But you cannot do Kiddush and then go to a club. It's like, you're making a joke. I told him, no, let me explain to you. If you go now to a playground, and you see an 8-year-old boy running up and down, climbing the ladders, jumping up and down, nobody gets excited, because everybody does it. All the little kids do it. But if you see an 11-month-old baby do a step, everybody's like, wow, look, he walked. Within 3 seconds, Facebook is flooded with pictures how he walked. I told him, I'm this baby. You know what happens now in Shamayim? I'll tell you what happens now in Shamayim. Hashem calls all his angels, and he tells them, look at my little boy. Look what he did. He drove 60 miles to buy kosher wine. He could have bought it in the corner store. And look what a meal he did. And look at the beautiful suit he has. And look at that fancy cup. And look what he did. He took 2 minutes out of his day. He stopped his reality to thank me for creating the world. To acknowledge that I exist. I told him in Hashem's eye, I'm this little baby that can only do a step and I fall. I can't do more than that, and Hashem knows it. Maybe in a year I'll be able to keep Shabbat. I can't do it now. I'm a little baby that does a little step and falls, and my Father in heaven is so proud of me that I did such an effort in every little detail of this little mitzvah. And that's how the whole first 2 years of my life was. Every little thing. I didn't do much, because it was impossible. But whatever I did with all my heart. 2 years later, miraculously, I found myself somehow back in New York. It wasn't somehow. My wife was telling me, you were telling the wrong miracle. The miracle how you came back from Shamayim to this world is not such a miracle. The miracle how you came from New York, from Chicago to New York, that's the miracle. But that we'll keep for another shiur. Or maybe we'll have time later. But the thing is that I found myself in New York, going through a very, very tough time. And I met this young lady, and she told me, why don't you come tonight? There's a little gathering in Esha Torah in Manhattan, young people, you'll meet maybe. So she schleps me to this place, and I go into a big room like this, and a band playing, and music, and a whole thing, and I really didn't feel like being there. I was really going through a lot of things. Not only that, I really felt out of place, and I felt real bad to just get up and leave. So I moved from this seat, then I moved to this seat, then I moved to this seat, and every 2-3 minutes I moved one seat, and when the time was right, I ran out. Unfortunately, my intelligence was not so good. Instead of running to the street, I ran into the shul. So I go into the shul, and I see a rabbi standing at the head of the table, maybe 30 people around the table, and the rabbi tells me, come in, join us. And in my mind, I'm like, how am I getting out of that? I'm like, no, I gotta wake up real early in the morning. I gotta go. He's like, no, come, join us. He puts me right next to him, and in my mind, I'm like, wow, look how far the door is. How am I gonna get it? Then he starts talking, and I never heard Torah in my life. That was my first Torah class in my life. I was like mesmerized. I was like, wow. I couldn't leave the room. Every 5 minutes I look at the clock in the morning. I really had to be somewhere in the morning. I couldn't get up. Came the end of the class, I walked to the rabbi, I tell him, you must be some type of a genius. I don't even know how you know so much information. He's like, if you really enjoyed yourself, come back next Wednesday, there's another class. I told him, you didn't cover the whole thing tonight? So he tells me, come back next week. Sure enough, I came back next Wednesday. This time I was the first one right next to the rabbi. Following Wednesday, another time. After a couple of these Wednesdays, I got friendly with the rabbi and he told me, look, I see you really like what I'm teaching. Why don't you come to my house every Thursday night from 12 a.m. till 6 a.m. We study all night Zohar, and then we go to a mikveh, and then we go pray shacharit, and then we get ready for Shabbat. I told him, that sounds like an amazing idea. You know what? I really don't have anything else to do between 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. every Thursday night. So I went to his house. Sure enough, maybe 10 guys sitting, and he's teaching Zohar. And all that he's talking about is spiritual worlds, and souls, and angels, and godly powers, and all sorts of freaky and spooky stuff. And everything that he says, I'm like, wait a minute, I remember that. And everything that he says, I'm like, no, that's not how it looks. So after a couple of these all-nighters, I said, you know, this rabbi is a little bit cuckoo. Because if this is what he's teaching, must be that he's a little bit out there. Maybe I can tell him what happened to me. So I come and tell him, you know, something happened to me 2 years ago, and I never told it to anyone. And I think you are the candidate. So he's like, Bakasha, come, say. So I sit down, I start telling him the whole story. He wasn't patient like you. He was like, no. Came the end. He's looking at me like with these piercing eyes, this Yemenite rabbi. He tells me in Hebrew, Ata meshuga. Are you crazy? I'm like, no, this guy thinks I'm crazy? He's like, are you crazy? Hashem did such a miracle to you and you're not doing anything? He freaked out. He ripped up my shirt. He's like, you're not wearing tzitzit. He freaked out. You have to go to yeshiva. What are you doing? The next day, 6 o'clock in the morning, he took me at yeshiva. He threw me into the yeshiva. He's like, don't come out of here till I get you. 3 months from this day, I'm super religious. The whole thing. I look up to Shamayim. I tell the boss, look how religious I am. First part of the deal, no? Okay. Now comes the second part of the deal. How do I do it? So I go to a big rabbi and I tell him, this is the resume. What do I do? He's like, okay, for everything that you ever stole, you have to return it to the owner. I don't have it anymore. Okay, so evaluate how much it's worth and go to the owner and give it back to him. But how can I find the owner? If you can't find the owner, go and donate it. And if you cheated in business, you owe that person money, you have to find that person. You insulted that person, go and find him and apologize. You did this, you have to do that. You have to do this, you did that. He gives me a whole menu. Okay, a few months later, I meet my wife. A few months later, we get married. A few months later, I already have a girl. But a year plus from that day, I'm totally religious, married with a girl, and kind of covered the second part of the deal. So, again, I look up to Shamayim. No, 2 out of 3. Now came the hard part. Start telling it to people. So in the beginning, I had a very good audience. I would tell it to the rabbi in the yeshiva, and here to maybe another rabbi. So they were very excited. Because everything that I said, they're like, you know, it's unbelievable what you're saying now is written in this Gemara. And what you're saying now is written in this Torah. And what you're saying now is written in this book. But then I had to tell it to the real world. So I got my first gig in some shul in Brooklyn, full of Israelis. Baruch Hashem, they did not give out tomatoes in the entrance, because if they had what to throw at me, they would. The whole night, Shakran, you liar, get out of here, who brought him here? The whole night, they were cursing me. And in my mind, I'm like, that's what I'm going to have to deal with now, the rest of my life? was a big room, maybe 100 people, and in the end, in the corner, I see one guy like shivering. Comes to me at the end of the night, he tells me, I believe every word that you said. What do I have to do? So I said, if I have to go through this suffering for one guy to have a change in heart, I'll do it. So I started going from one shul to another shul, to another shul, to another yeshiva, to another school. And I would come and tell the whole story. You literally getting the short version. I would say more details and details, but then I would finish and leave. But 4 or 5 years ago, something happened which totally changed the whole way. One time, out of the blue, my brother-in-law, a very young man, never smoked a cigarette in his life, goes out for a jog, gets a heart attack, dies on the spot. My sister calls me from Israel, tells me, come. I fly to Israel for the funeral. I go from the airport to the funeral. I go into the room of the Chevra Kadisha, and in Israel they bury in a talit, not like here that they bury in a coffin. I walk into the room, I see my sister's crying, and my brother-in-law on the table. I pull out my book of Tehillim, I start reading the Tehillim, and one eye I'm looking at him, one eye I'm looking at the Tehillim, and I'm like, wait a minute. He hears me. He's on the ceiling. He hears my Tehillim. He hears my sister crying. He sees everything that's going on. I remember I was on the ceiling hearing all those voices and all the whispering and all the thoughts, and I saw everything that's going on. He sees everything. And I'm looking at the body, and according to nature, he wasn't really Shomer Torah and Mitzvot. He wasn't really on the Torah side of his lifestyle. Now the thing is that you can't really judge a book by its cover. Some people on the outside look like this, and the inside is, and some people on the outside, they look totally secular, and the inside is pure and honest, and all the good things. But according to nature, this guy was not really keeping Torah and mitzvahs. And in my mind, I was like, where is he now? Whoa, now he's going here, and now they're taking him here, and now he's going through this, and I'm like, and then it made me realize something very simple. You know what was my problem up there? Not that I wasn't religious. My problem up there, that I didn't even have one mitzvah. I didn't even have one mitzvah to tell them in Shamayim, whoa, relax, stop the trial. You're right, I didn't keep Shabbat. And you're right, I didn't eat kosher. And you're right, I didn't learn Torah. But I used to put tefillin on every day. I didn't even have that. I didn't even have one mitzvah to wave in Shamayim and said, you're right, I wasn't a super Jew. But I used to do this, and I used to do this, and I used to do that. That was my problem. I didn't even have one string to hold and say, I have a connection with Hashem. That was my problem. And that's most people's problems. And it made me realize something very simple. I can stand here till tomorrow and tell you more details and more details and more details. It doesn't matter. Because it happened to me. It happened to me, so I will become religious. It happened to me that I will change my way. Doesn't matter how many parables I'm going to come up with. It's not going to give zero of information what I felt. The pain, the pleasure, anything. There's no words. So there's really not of a point even to tell more details. The point is very, very simple. It's very, very simple. In this world, everybody tends to insure everything. You insure your car, you insure your life, you insure your body, you insure even your cell phone, that if it falls in the toilet, you get a new one. Everything that moves, you insure. If chas v'shalom it happens. Why do you insure your car? Were you expecting to get into a car accident? Chas v'shalom. No, but if I chas v'shalom do, then I have insurance. And why do you insure your health? What, are you expecting to be sick? No, but if chas v'shalom. So why most people don't think, wait a minute, maybe something is waiting for me up there. Maybe I should do a little policy here. Can. Now the thing is very, very simple. The way how I saw this world in two very simple ways. Imagine now somebody comes and tells you, you see that jewelry store across the street? You have 3 hours to go over to the store. Anything you want is yours. One person will be like, thank you so much, look at this nice watch I have, I don't need anything. The stupid one. One person will be like, really? Okay, so I'll take this watch, and I'll take these earrings, and I'll take this necklace, and maybe this too. The smart one will be like, what? You're giving me 3 hours? He goes home and he brings boxes. He fills the boxes with all the jewelry. And this is this world. Hashem comes and tells you, you have 60, 70, 80 years. Do whatever you want. It's yours. Free. So one person says, I'm good where I am. I'm very comfortable here. The stupid one. The second one says, okay, so I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. The smart one says, what? You giving me 60 years? And all day long, all he runs after is another mitzvah, another mitzvah, another mitzvah, another good deed, another learning, another this, another that. That's how I saw the world. And the other thing how I saw the world, I'll tell you a story. Once there was a king, and the king had a son. Finally the son got married. Everybody in the country got an invitation to the wedding. One person got an invitation, he couldn't believe his eyes. An invitation to the son of the king's wedding! He went and bought a new suit, new shoes. He couldn't believe it. He had an invitation on the wall. He couldn't wait. He was counting the days. On the other side of town, one guy got an invitation, but not on a piece of paper. An entire entourage of people came to invite him. Ministers, generals, the second to the king, all the king's advisors. Everybody came to personally invite him to the wedding. The day of the wedding comes. The guy with the invitation puts on his new suit, gets all ready, runs down, puts his invitation in his pocket. The second he walks out of the building, pouring rain. He's like, how am I going to make it now? He sees the bus driving down. He's like, oh my God, the second the bus crosses the intersection, I'm going to run to the bus. His plan didn't work well. He starts running after the bus continues driving, he falls into a puddle, gets soaking wet. He gets up, wait, starts running after the bus, stop, I'm going to the wedding. The bus drives over. He's running after the bus, he's soaking wet, he falls into another puddle, he gets even more wet. He continues walking, a gang of robbers come, they beat him up, they rob him, they take everything he has. On the other side of town, the other guy, you should see helicopters in the air, soldiers surrounding, guarding him, people carrying him like this into the limousine. The other guy finally gets to the wedding, the doors are already closed, he comes there gushing blood, soaking wet. He tells the guards, I came to the wedding. They're telling him, okay, can you show us your invitation? Of course. He pulls out the invitation from his pocket. It's so soaking wet, there's nothing left. The guards tell him, we're very sorry. You can't come in. He's like, no, I'm telling you, I'm invited. Look on your lists. You can't come in. He's, Chevra, I'm telling you, I'm invited. Look, you can't come in. He's like, are you out of your mind? You know what I went through to come to this wedding? Look at me. I'm soaking wet. Look at me. I was mobbed. I was robbed. I was beaten up. I'm starving. I didn't eat anything all day long. No problem. You hungry? They come out with a nice plate of sushi and a bottle of 7-Up. Here, eat, drink. He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm invited. You're not coming in. He's trying to look through the gates. Maybe he can see somebody. He sees all the way at the end the king sitting with all his glory. Next to the king is the son. And on the other side of the king is the guy who came with all the limousines. And he tells them, look, I'm invited. You're not coming in. The moral is very, very simple. Our sages say, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba. All the Jews, they have a piece in the world to come. We are all invited to the wedding. The question is how the ride to the wedding is going to be. And when you're finally at the wedding, are you going to be sitting next to the king? Or are you going to be outside with a plate of sushi? So I choose to be next to the king. So every minute of my life, I run after another mitzvah, and another good deed, and another this, and another that. Because I want to be next to the king. Doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean everybody has to be fanatic. But the point is that you have to internalize that there's a journey going to the wedding, and once you're there, where do you sit? Now, as I said before, I can go over and over and over and more details and more details, more details. That doesn't matter. The point is very, very simple. If you leave this door tonight and everything is the same, you wasted an hour and a half of your time. You wasted the air in this shul. If you leave this room and you say, you know what, maybe this guy is not so crazy as he sounds. Maybe there is something. Maybe I'm not 100% how I should be. What do I do tonight? Not next week like I was in with the Shabbat. Next week. If you leave this room and tonight you have a change in your heart, okay, I'm going to start being a better boss. I'm going to start being a better husband. I'll be a better wife. I'll be a better mother. I'll start adding this and this and this. I'll start doing that. I'll stop doing this. The point is to constantly la'alot b'kodesh. Constantly. Hashem doesn't expect you to be fanatic. I have a friend that I somehow managed to touch him, and he started putting tefillin every day. One day I call him, how are you? I'm good, how are you? Fine. I told him, Derech Agav, by the way, did you put tefillin on today? He's like, no, today I didn't. Told him, why? Is there a holiday? He's like, no, I don't want to be fanatic. I told him, what has that to do with it? He's like, if I'm going to put tefillin on every day, I'm going to become fanatic. I told him, what's one going to do the other? The mitzvah is to put tefillin every day. You don't have to be fanatic to put tefillin every day. You have to hold the mitzvah all the way. The point is very, very simple. That you were b'ashgacha pratit with a supreme supervision were somehow dragged into this room to know, wait a minute, what can I take out of this room tonight? What do I change in my life to make my life a better place, to make the world a better place, and to make everything much better? Has nothing to do becoming super Jew and 2-foot-long beard. That's not the point. This is the position in the wedding. Everybody makes their own decisions where they want to sit in the wedding. Some people say, I'm fine next to the exit as long as I'm in. So this is the only message that I can give you. And in a second, you can ask me any question you want. We have permission to stay here till whatever hour we want. But Bemet, the only thing that one needs to internalize is that every little thing that we do in this world, it echoes in eternity. You do good in this world, it echoes in eternity good. You do bad in this world, it echoes in eternity bad. So the decision has to be very, very simple. And a lot of places that I go to, the rabbi catches me at the door and he tells me, scare them! Tell them there's a Gehinnom! Why? Well, I don't want, that's not the point. But a lot of places that I go to, they tell me, scare them, make them feel afraid. I told them, that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem doesn't stand there with a baseball bat in Shammai wanting to smash you to pieces. You know how I see it? I see it in a total different way. Any second, Mashiach should come. Any second. And what's going to happen when Mashiach will come? Every Jew and Jewette, I'm joking, will have a meeting with the king. Can you imagine sitting and talking to the king? Now this is not some stam king, this is Melech HaMashiach. What are you going to tell the king when he asks you, what did you do to hasten the Geula? What did you do to make me come faster? What are you going to tell the king? I was on Facebook.
What about the people who burn?
I can't hear you.
What about the people who burn?
So I will get them sunscreen. If they're ashamed, that's something else. I'm not going to judge anyone now who's going to burn, who's not going to burn. The point is very, very simple. That we're so close to the Geula. Nobody really knows their expiration date. Some people say, I'll do tshuva when I'm 80, when it's easy. Yeah, but what if you're not going to get to 80? So we don't know our expiration date. You have to live your life like tomorrow, today. What am I doing today? I have a whole day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe I leave the room tonight and that's it. But more than that, this is more of a negative attitude, more than a good attitude. Mashiach can come any second. What can I do to change the world? Rambam says that one Jew needs to do one mitzvah to tilt the entire world to kaf zchut, to be judged favorably. Maybe I'm that Jew. Maybe somewhere out there, there's one Jew who just needs to come to a Sudat Shabbat and keep one time, say a bracha, say something. We don't know. And it sounds very like imaginary, Mashiach, it's stories. It's not. So I want to wish you all great success in everything that you do. I wish you that you'll take from this night a lot of koach to leave this room and say, how am I making my life a better life? How am I making this world a better world? And I wish you great success in everything that you do. If you're interested in hearing more, I have a very busy Facebook page. If you're not on Facebook, don't go there. But if you are already there, then at least utilize the time for good things. I have hundreds of videos posted every day and posts. And you can, any social media place, just Google my name, just write Rabbi Alon Anava. There's tons of other videos. You can share it with friends, let other people know. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. You can ask the most embarrassing questions. I already got the worst. And again, I wish you great success in all your ways. And just remember what I said before. Everything that you do in this world, it echoes in eternity. Very, very loud. So just make sure you do just good. That the waves of the sound will be good. So again, I wish you great success. And you have a question.
Yes, I love the story.
I'm not over. That's the first part one.